know, this is the first State of the Town address in at least the last 20 years, and maybe ever. Being the first one, I'm here tonight to tell you what we've been doing lately, what we're trying to achieve, and why Leesburg is such a fantastic place to live. I'll start out with a bit of history, some information on the budget, some personnel changes that we've had, and then 3 major questions for our future. In 1758, the Virginia Assembly established the town of Leesburg. By 1950, Leesburg had grown all the way to a population of 1,700. Since then, we've grown by at least 50% every decade and are now approaching 50,000 people. We're the largest town in Virginia, just ahead of Blacksburg, and if you don't count college students, we're twice as big as second place Herndon. We're larger in population than 70% of the cities in Virginia and larger than 75% of the counties. In short, we are a serious part of this Commonwealth. Our budget, though, has been reasonably Spartan over the last 10 years. In 2007, our total spend, counting general fund, utilities, the airport, and capital projects, was $115 million. Since then, the town has grown about 30%, but the proposed budget for 2017 is $95 million, a reduction of close to 20%. All this with 22 fewer employees than in 2007. This shows how efficient and well managed our budget has been, and the 3 major rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch, agree. All have given us a AAA bond rating, the only town in Virginia with this distinction. When talking about the budget, what people mention most often is the real estate tax rate. There are a few surprising facts that I thought I might not mention. 1, most of our revenue comes from meals and cigarette tax, money from the state and the county, fees from idling in the airport. Real estate taxes account for less than 1/4 of the total revenue of the town. 2, at times, people look at their real estate bill and ask, what do I get for this? What am I actually paying for this money? You would expect your town taxes to pay for services over and above what other county residents receive. And this is true. Real estate taxes essentially pay for 2 things. Trash and recycling, which is paid for individually by people outside the town, and our police force, which is a level of public safety over and above what most of the rest of the county enjoys. Everything else that the town does is paid for by the other revenue sources that I mentioned. 3, since 2008, taking inflation into account, the average tax bill has fallen by about 30%. 8 out of the last 9 years, we've given our residents, on average, a tax cut. I say average because Leesburg does not control assessments, and assessments can certainly vary across neighborhoods. If our tax rate this year ends up lower than 18.72 cents, then it will be 9 out of the last 10 years we've given a tax cut. 4, our tax rate is 20 to 30% lower than 4 towns comparable to us, Vienna, Purcellville, Blacksburg, and Herndon. A significant factor in our budgets, especially our future budgets, is our relationship with the county. A couple of weeks ago, I reached out to the entire Board of Supervisors. I've had discussions with about half of them, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Chairman Randall soon. We're looking at possible efficiencies around police force, sheriff's department, fire and rescue, Balch Library, all areas that we want to do what makes sense for both the town and the county. Now, as is inevitable in all organizations at some point, there's been a significant change in personnel for the town over the last 18 months. We have a new town attorney, we have a new town manager, we have a new mayor, and we're in the process of searching for a new police chief. All of the previous occupants of these positions did fantastic jobs, in my opinion. We're sorry to see them go, but they've all either retired or they've gone on to bigger and better things. As part of these changes, there is a new focus on customer service. A few examples. We all know that letting a toilet run or getting a leak in a water line can really blow up your water bill. It can make an enormous difference. But now you can sign up for high usage alerts. You set a level, and the town staff will let you know when your usage exceeds it, so you can minimize the amount of water that gets wasted. We have a person at the town hall counter that speaks Spanish. This is not coincidental. It's now a requirement for this job. And we have mayor's hours in town hall, where you can come and you can see me and you can talk about whatever you want. If you want to pay a tax bill, which nobody likes, but we all have to do, you can do that at the police station 24/7. Or if you want to get rid of old or unused medications, you can drop them off the police station at any time as well. And speaking of police, thanks to Councilmember Tom Dunn, we've started an annual Police Appreciation Day each fall. Now moving forward, here are the three main questions that we need to continually answer. One, how do we attract more commercial development and increase employment? Two, how do we continue to increase quality of life as our town matures? And three, how do we support an increasingly diverse population? For the first question, no one on the town council has been a bigger advocate of commercial development and employment growth than Councilmember Katie Hamler. She pushes us all the time, and in the recent past, we've done some great things. The Mason Enterprise Center has exploded. It now has 72 companies as clients, 41 with offices in the building, and they represent about $40 million in revenue annually. It's graduated 24 companies. 17 of them have stayed right here in Leesburg, generating jobs. The Oaklawn area near the airport has also really taken off. The south side of town finally has a gas station outside the bypass. Gas stations were a prominent item in the Economic Development Commission's leakage report. What's that? It's what goods and services do we not have enough of? So the addition of a gas station is a win for everybody. K2M, a medical device manufacturer, will be staying in town and expanding to 400 to 500 high-paying jobs. With a negative vote on council, all of those jobs would have gone to Maryland. But fortunately, we voted to allow them to stay. Poets Walk Memory Care is approved for Oaklawn as well, and former Delegate Joe May's company, Electronic Instrumentation and Technology, or EIT, is moving there. So Oaklawn has been quite a success story. Two major construction projects, Lowe's and Cornerstone Chapel, moving towards completion. Lowe's is not far from the village of Leesburg, and Cornerstone is at the corner of Sickland and Battlefield. Now with Lowe's also comes a connection between Battlefield and Russell Branch Parkway behind the village going to Cobb Theater. The airport, that's going great as well. We're the first airport in the nation to pilot, no pun intended, a remote control tower. This technology allows air traffic controllers to monitor an airport's airspace from anywhere, and it will enable smaller airports like our own to have controllers, where before this would be cost prohibitive. Our challenge now is to see if we can figure out how to keep the virtual tower once this pilot program is over. And talking about jobs, I think we can agree that they're very often tough for our high school and college students. But we have our 4th annual Youth Career Expo coming up soon. This was started by Vice Mayor Kelly Burke, and it's been a great success. Please remind any of the students that you know it will be on April 9th from 11 to 2 at Tuscarora High School. Regarding economic development, there is one major cloud on the near horizon. It's a recent bill passed by our General Assembly that will make it much more difficult to accept any rezonings that include houses. This will be true all across Virginia. Now some of you may be thinking, great, no more houses, they don't pay for themselves anyway. But that's not necessarily a good thing. For the town, houses almost always pay for themselves, and the most environmentally friendly way to build houses is urban infill. That is, filling in spaces within a town like Leesburg rather than creating more sprawl. But this bill would cause more people to live and commute from West Virginia, Maryland, and even southern Pennsylvania. And you can just imagine the additional impact that will have on Route 15 North and Route 9. The biggest problem with this bill is its effect on mixed developments, those with both houses and commercial development. Almost all of us like the village at Leesburg, and we like what Crescent Place is going to be. Crescent Place is a development that's going in where the old Barber and Ross factory was on Harrison Street. With this law in place, we may not have been able to approve either of those developments. Being against this bill was the one thing that the town and county absolutely agreed on, and this seems to be one piece of governmental regulation that helps no one. I know Senator Jennifer Wexton worked hard to defeat it, and I hope next year the General Assembly can see that they have perhaps made an error and move to correct it. The second question, how do we continue to increase quality of life as we mature as a town? Now, as far as I'm concerned, the quality of life in Leesburg is outstanding, and I hope you all agree. Just over the weekend, I heard from more than one person that Leesburg has everything. But for all localities, continually making improvements is essential. We have to continue to make things better and give residents more opportunities to relax, enjoy, and play. One way to improve quality of life is to keep people's basements from flooding. And over the last 10 years, we've spent millions of dollars to do this. As the town grew fast, we made decisions that, while perfectly normal for the practices of the day, caused unforeseen problems later. We're not completely done yet, but we fixed most of these problems, and with modern regulations, new development shouldn't cause any more of these kinds of concerns. We've added 2 brand new parks recently. Mervyn Jackson Park in front of the parking garage on the west side. That was proposed and spearheaded by Councilmember Marty Martinez. And also Potomac Crossing Park at the end of Shanks Evans Road. I encourage all of you to visit both of them. The last leg of Battlefield Parkway will be under construction this fall between the Greenway and Route 15 at Meade Drive. I remember, say, 15 years ago, there were a number of Battlefield Parkways, none of which connected each other. But we're getting close to the finish line on this now. We're also trying to get money from Richmond to pay for interchanges at the bypass in Edwards Ferry and Battlefield Parkway and Route 7. Those are clearly our toughest intersections to travel through. But moving around Leesburg is not just about cars. We've added a number of bike trails and a bike lane we painted down Plaza Street. We'll complete a small Leesburg loop in town with signs showing how to get around on a bicycle. And the council is also planning to create a larger loop and to put in bike lanes all around town wherever they'll fit. We mentioned Crescent Place earlier. Its primary advocate was then Mayor, now Supervisor, Kristen Umstadt, and it will provide a lot of boutique retail shops, as well as high-end residential townhomes full of people to go downtown. Across the street from Crescent Place, we're making exciting improvements in Raffle Park. As a town matures, there's often a greater emphasis on art in its many forms. Through efforts of the Commission on Public Art, there will be statues along the new trail that's there. But by far the biggest change downtown is the expansion of on-street dining. On the west side of King Street between Loudon and Market Streets, the restaurants are now able to put tables on the street and serve their entire menu, including adult beverages. We've been working towards this for over 8 years, and it's wonderful to see it come to fruition. If successful, which I have no doubt it will be, we can look at expansion in other areas as well. Going forward, based on the urging of Council members Suzanne Fox and Bruce Gemmell, the Council and town staff will be defining and reviewing major service levels for our residents. This could include how we pick up leaves and brush, how often we collect trash and recycling, how quickly we plow everyone out from a storm. Based on input from everyone, we can decide to spend more money to improve service levels, or in some cases, save money by looking at better ways to get the job done. All of these are ways that we're trying to improve the quality of life in Leesburg. Our third question, how do we support a diverse population, is in many ways both the trickiest to answer and the most important. The change in race and ethnicity over the last 15 years has been dramatic. In 2000, Leesburg was 83% non-Hispanic white. In 2010, 71%. Currently, it's less than 62%. So over 38% of our population is now classified as a minority. About 2 years ago, we reviewed the racial and ethnic makeup of the town staff, and we found that the percentage of non-Hispanic whites was far higher than the population as a whole. So much so that it was a legitimate concern whether staff could adequately provide great customer service to the entire town. So we commissioned a diversity task force to look at this problem. And the task force provided a list of recommendations for our recruitment practices that could help provide the town staff with a more diverse applicant pool from which to hire the best people we can find. And this has started to help. I've already mentioned the Spanish-speaking front desk person at Town Hall. One of the recommendations from the task force was to form a diversity commission, which we did. This commission, while not involved with recruitment or hiring practices, is working on ways to bring us more together as a town, so as we continue to grow, we can sidestep some of the issues that other towns have endured. And I'm sure you can think of examples without me having to point them out. Just recently, the Loudon Freedom Foundation made us aware of an abandoned gravesite off of Sickland Road. This was an African-American cemetery that almost certainly includes slaves from the 1800s. I had an opportunity to visit it with Dr. Fred Snowden and Pastor Michelle Thomas of the Freedom Foundation, and I can tell you it was a much more moving experience than I expected. In the last month, though, the town staff has jumped into action, clearing dead deer away from the site, mapping the graves, clearing much of the dead trees and opening up trails to it. They found at least 58 likely graves with the mapping, and once it's drier, they'll clean up other debris, and eventually together, we can fully preserve this important piece of our cultural heritage. In summary, I see great things in Leesburg. I see it in the crowds at the village. I see it in the bands and the sports teams that roam our fields. I see it in the passion surrounding all the businesses on First Fridays. And I see it in all the people that love living in Leesburg because of our historic downtown. And that's why I can say unequivocally that the state of our town is strong, and I'm proud to be your mayor. Thank you.